have an agenda. I hope all you can see the agenda in front of you. Is it visible to everyone?
Yep.
Okay. We are going to, prior to getting into the agenda, we'll have the opportunity to adopt, is that 2 separate minutes? Yes. Both of the meetings that occurred in February for this board. So we'll review and accept both of those minutes. We'll go through the tree protection ordinance. We do have a request to amend that ordinance from a request, which I assume is the requester's on the line or will be soon. And then, I'm sorry, I need to put my glasses on to be able to read this because it's a little bit small on my laptop screen. Thank you, Peyton. And a consideration to adopt the updated bylaws, and I believe that was part of the version of the agenda sent out earlier. And any subcommittee check-ins that we have that we can report on. Are there any other business items that we need to add to this agenda, or should we go ahead and just adopt a motion to accept it as is and discuss it?
I think you can adopt as is, and if we get to other business and someone needs to bring something up, we can just add it once we get there.
Okay, would someone like to float that motion to adopt this agenda as is?
A motion to adopt the agenda.
And I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have set the agenda, and I don't know if all of you had an opportunity to review the minutes from the 2 meetings that occurred last month. It was a bit of an unusual month for us to meet twice, but it was for very good reasons. So why don't we address the February 9th ESB minutes? And I would ask for a motion to accept those minutes as written.
And Rob, you can adopt those minutes together if you want to ask for a motion to just do them together.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Why don't we look at both sets of minutes? And then I'll rephrase the question. Is there a motion to adopt both of those minutes in tandem?
I'll motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Doug?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any discussion regarding the minutes?
Looks good.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to adopt the 2 sets of minutes, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Peyton, I think the motion passes. Both sets of minutes have been approved and adopted.
Okay, great.
All right, I lost my view of the agenda.
Sorry, let me get that back up on the screen for you.
No problem. I'm not quite as proficient in WebEx as I used to the other tools for the most part. All right, so the first item on our agenda for this evening is the tree protection ordinance that we're all quite familiar with, and there is a request for an amendment to allow relief of the tree inventory requirements for development projects. And I don't know is this something that Shelley, you would like to set up for us perhaps and help us discuss this?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. So Peyton, real quick, do you want me to bring up the PowerPoint or are you, I mean, I have it here if you want me to share.
I've got it unless you want to drive.
That's fine. Yeah, nope, that's fine. So if you want to bring up our item. Okay, so so if you could just go to the next slide, please, that would be great. Wonderful. Okay, so the city council had their annual retreat in which all the various departments share progress of some of the action items on the previous work program and just updates and so forth. And so when we were at the retreat, they asked specifically about the tree ordinance. And I shared with them that we've had just a couple of requests for relief on the tree inventory requirement, and that the items have been going, one for a residential subdivision and one for a commercial, and we've taken it through the process where we go before the ESB board recommendation, and then staff has the ability to make the ultimate decision on it. So we've heard a little bit more from the non-residential development community and talking with our city council. Our city council would like us to incorporate a more streamlined process for administrative relief in the tree inventory requirements for commercial and industrial developments only. Residential subdivisions, they are very happy with the process of taking it to the ESB board and then coming back to staff for a recommendation, with a recommendation. So again, you know, we've already, our current process, we've gone through 2 of these exercises. And so looking at this directive by council and the ordinance, I used the 2 requests for relief that we've heard thus far as sort of a baseline to develop this ordinance relief. And next slide, please. I kept hitting my arrow to advance and when I couldn't do it. I was like, it's not moving. Okay, so when I approached this directive, again, I looked at what we've already handled. If you go back 1 slide, there you go. And what I found is the tree ordinance is in chapter 11. There's a subsection of 11.1.5, which is titled Exemption and Relief. So I felt this was the most appropriate area to include this area of relief. So I'm proposing to add a subsection C. And in this draft ordinance, the language that I have thus far will indicate that there's relief in tree inventory requirements when the applicant is proposing to offer 200% of the required tree save area and that it will be preserved. So we have done that in the past too, where their requirement may have been 10%, but they're offering 20%, or it was 15 and they offered 30. So I started with that as one of the baseline. 200% of the required tree safe area will be preserved. That the tree preservation areas, or the TSAs, will comply with all other sections of the ordinance. So that means the sections that identify what is a qualifying tree, what type, you know, so it'd be 10, 18 or 36-inch trees, and that's how they're surveyed based on species and health requirements and so forth. And then, so those are the first 2. And then the last one, that surveying of heritage trees throughout the site would still be required. So right now, our regulations require someone that wants to do development to survey every tree on the property 10 inches or greater, identify the species, the health, and any heritage trees, which that would be included, the 36 inches in the overall survey. So the thought there was, if we allow people to only survey a certain percentage of their property instead of 100%, we still would like them to make an effort to preserve the heritage trees. So that's why we kept that in there. So basically, it'd be these three criteria, and then if these requirements are met, the inventory area will be reduced to the proposed tree save area, and of course, heritage trees on the entire site. They still need to survey that. So that's pretty much what our approach has been when considering the areas of relief for the tree survey. Can you go to the next slide, please? So with this request, so a text amendment, let me talk about the process. Whenever we create an ordinance or we're amending regulations, we're required to take it to the planning board for recommendation to the city council. When it's a chapter of the ordinance where, for example, the tree preservation ordinance is overseen by the ESB board, we want to bring any amendment or modification to the ESB board for a recommendation to the planning board, and then ultimately the city council makes a decision. So if you go back one slide, I do want to let you know that when I created this draft, I did talk to Joe Joyner, who helped with Davie Resource Group, who helped develop this entire chapter, this recent update about what we were proposing. And he agreed that it was a reasonable request, and if ultimately we get twice the amount of tree save area for creating this sort of administrative process for them, it's a win for the city. Any tree save area that is preserved when it goes for a development, they are required to record an easement, a conservation easement over it that would go in perpetuity. So we wouldn't have to, once they dedicate the 200% of whatever their area requirement is, that would be preserved. We wouldn't have to worry about them coming back and wanting to do development within that area. It would lock that area in. So what's before you tonight, I wanted to share with you what we're proposing to be amended within this relief request, hopefully get a recommendation to move forward to the planning board and the city council.
Thank you so much, Sally. That was very informative and succinct. Hey, where could I find this on, I'm on Belmont board or on the Belmont website right now. Is this on there or not? The section 11.
Chapter 11, yes. If you would, in the search bar, just type in Chapter 11.
City standards?
Yes, it should be. I would just do the homepage search bar and just, it will come up landscape and tree preservation, but it's actually part of the LDC. So if you type in Chapter 11, you should get one of these selections should be the chapter. Now, one thing I did want to show you, you brought this up, Doug, at the last meeting, and if you would go to this 2 slides down, you said you wanted to see what a tree survey was.
Oh, thank you so much for bringing that back up. Yeah, I was still curious because looking at amending it, I'm like, I have no idea what we're even looking at.
Right. So our ordinance, the intent is correct out there in that we ask that every tree that is a qualifying tree, which is 10 inches or greater, be surveyed, and they would need to identify the species of the tree. And this one, if you look at, this one's actually a web-based survey, which is really great because it overlays a bunch of different screens. Ultimately, that helps you nail down where you want to preserve the healthiest trees. So they look something like this. If Peyton, is there any way you can give me control for just a minute so I could show some of the other screens? Let's see if I can find this one screen here. Here we go. Let's see if this pops up. Okay, so this is a screen of what was prepared for the Imperial Mills development. That one's still in a sketch phase. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Great. So it's a written document, but this one, what I really like about this company is they actually give you layers, GIS layers that you can overlay. So it's usually accompanied with a report. They talk about how they did the survey, identified by GPS coordinates, the species, the condition, what they use to judge the condition. The diameter at breast height, which is required. And then again, they looked at the categories that is consistent with Chapter 11, that protected trees are 10 inches, between 10 and 18 inches. Significant trees are 18 to 30, or just under 36, say 35. And then heritage trees are 36 inches or greater. So besides the report, now this one, again, this is a web-based. And what I like, let's see if I can get this to pop up. I have to stop sharing and go back. This one's loading. So do you see the tree inventory map? I'm not sure what you're looking at. It says I'm sharing, but let me stop and reshare to make sure.
What we see right now are the links.
Okay,
so
then you're not seeing what I'm seeing. So give me 1 second to stop and reshare.
Yeah.
Okay, let me reshare here. Technology, yes. Okay, so where is my meeting? Share, okay. Then I got to find where the buttons are. Let's see, I think it's this one. Okay, so this one's interesting. So this one is a tree. Do you see my map now with all the little dots?
Yes.
Okay, so this one is showing by color code which category they fall in. And so the red, it's telling me that there's 9 significant trees, and they are the red dots that are located throughout here. So it really nails down for you exactly where your heritage trees. So this one, you can tell that with this limited amount of heritage trees, this used to be an old mill site with mill housing on it. So it has been cleared at various times and so forth. So this is regrowth in the area, but I have 119 trees that are significant. They're 18 to 36 inches, and that's all the orange kind of little dots all over. And so
each dot is representative of one tree. Is that correct?
That's correct. Each dot is representative of one tree, and it tells me how many. Then what it does is this surveyor or this arborist, they layer the GIS layers that eventually tells you what type of species each one of those heritage trees are and what its condition is. Is it healthy, fair, good, and so forth? Because you could have heritage trees and go, oh, I need to save it, but it may be in fair or poor health or even dead. So what they do is, as they progress towards a tree save plan, they layer these on top of each other to ultimately identify where the healthy trees are, what the diameters are, because that translates into square footage for the tree save area. And only the healthy trees of a certain size counts towards your tree save area. And we've even put multipliers, you may recall. So say those 9 trees that are heritage trees, 36 inches or greater, are all healthy and they're going to preserve them. Well, they get a 2-for-1 credit for saving the more mature, healthy trees. They get a 1.5 credit for every significant tree that is preserved, that is healthy, and that's 18 inches, between 18 and 36. And then it's a 1-for-1 ratio for any qualifying tree, which is just a protected tree of 10 inches to 18. So
and I'm sorry, silly question. The inches, that's diameter of the tree, right?
Yes, at breast height. Yes, it's
gotcha.
Measured.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. So there is a lot of work in it. And so for where we come into the struggle is when people are looking to develop a 100, say it's a 100% wooded parcel. But for example, industrial only has to save 10% out of this 100%. But we're asking them to survey 100% of their lot. And that's all they have to preserve. You know, they're asking, well, why do I have to preserve? Why can't we just identify have an arborist identify the best area? I'm willing to give you twice as much and just survey that area and then just move on quickly. So we're hoping with this text amendment, at least for the commercial and industrial, we can streamline their process where we'd still have them survey all heritage trees on the entire lot, but then only have to give us 20% of their, or 200% of their required area. So if it's 10%, we would get 20% of the area and acreage in tree canopy save area. That makes sense? I don't want to complicate what we're trying to do. It can get very complicated when working with them.
No, that sounds fair. Hey, Robert, answer me this. Recently, you were part of a little subgroup on tree protection or a new contract. What was that in regards to?
Well, Sharon and I were both part of the broader committee that helped provide Shelley and the consultant, with feedback on the various steps that were undertaken in terms of public review, the drafts that were put together for the changes that were proposed initially for the tree ordinance, and then the final version of it as well. And, it was a very thorough process. I mean, there were plenty of opportunities for stakeholders to engage and to weigh in. And, I thought that the whole process unfolded very well.
Oh, that's perfect. And Sharon, sorry for asking you as well, but either of you can answer this next one. Do we understand the intent of looking at 100% of the area instead of why not look at the first 10%? And if they're all good, just stop there or go on 10% to 20% to 30%. Do we understand the intent of why the rule is written at look at 100% of the area and then save only 10%? Was there, additional information there? Just curious.
I can share a little bit about that because I had that same conversation again with Joe Joyner. So the concept was, so first we had the issue of the shock of when development occurs, everything at the front gets sort of clear cut, and the stands of trees that were being protected under our old ordinance, we had no process in place to ensure that they were healthy trees. They were just identifying where the canopy was. We said you had to save 25%. They would show us that they're saving 25%, but there was no survey tree by tree for us to actually understand what we were getting in that area. So part of the approach was to, first of all, let's establish a surveying process where we identify qualifying trees, put them in categories, say how much they need to be and the health of them. So we can ensure whatever's saved is actually healthy. Now, the concept of surveying 100% was to have the developer really think about and identify and design around the healthiest stand of trees. So in concept, that's wonderful, but that is not what happens in development. And this is why. So part of it is a lot of the land still available to be developed has steep topography. It's typically still constrained by topography, streams, creeks in there, or floodplain or waterfront, and so forth. And so what happens is before someone even submits something to us, so the way the process works, when you submit your sketch plan, you're supposed to submit your tree inventory, but they've already laid out their design. They do that before they even do the tree ordinance or the tree survey, because they're trying to identify the best areas to develop so they stay away from streams and steep topography. They, based on our ordinance, what are your roadway requirements? Your houses have to face the street and so forth. So what happens is a development team, when they first look at a parcel like the one we're looking at, before they even do the tree inventory, they have to see if they have a viable project. So they're going to look at our regulations and just start laying out buildings and roadways and parking lots, identify where the constraints are. And the trees aren't really taken into account initially. So when they submit something or first show something to us, they've already figured out that they need this much square footage or this many units with this kind of roadway network to best development and make their numbers work for a development. So the concept of having them do the tree survey first and then having them design around it, that just doesn't really happen in regular in the development approach. Companies do not do that. Now, where it's helpful is if when we get this information, if we look at their design and we're seeing a healthy stand of tree over here, it gives us the ability to say, look, there's a really healthy stand of trees over here, some heritage trees. Let's look at maybe designing, can we move your parking lot to this side? We'd rather reduce your setback over here so we can save this stand of trees and so forth. So it gives you more of a realistic picture of what's on the property. But on commercial and industrial, it is it's easier done in a residential development, a new subdivision, than a commercial and industrial. So I'm going to use industrial as an example. They are typically have to have distribution facilities, so they have to have truck circulation, wide areas for the trucks to get into the warehouse, out of the warehouse to turn around. The parking has to be opposite. So they go in with a more fixed layout. It's really more typical. In fact, Joe Joyner and I really talked about that for a long time. He said, although you can still ask them to survey their heritage trees, their foundation and layout of their project is more fixed, then it's more unlikely you will get them to redesign something to save this one or two heritage trees, but he said, just keep it consistent. So we had that discussion. So the approach, I think when we were doing the ordinance, the approach kind of went to the far extreme. We weren't getting good trees. We had the shock factor. We had all these remnant little trees. So by surveying all the trees, we really get a better idea of what's on the lot, which at the end of the day, what's important is to ensure whatever you're preserving, it's healthy, it's qualifying, and we put a lot of good regulations in it, such as if trees are near the border of your tree save area, 30% of the canopy is actually outside of that, you can't count that tree. So we end up with actually more in percentage than we used to. But that was the concept behind 100%. But what we're finding is, it's really difficult to get someone to redesign their site around trees.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because if I look at this area that you have up right here, someone's probably looking to, build on it, and they have an area where they want to build. Right? It makes sense for them, depending on what they're doing. And so if we say, like, right in the middle, we want to save those trees right there, I mean, that may make their plan like null and void to anything helpful for them. All right. Does anyone else have any sort of thoughts or comments on this, please?
Yeah, Shelley, I just wanted to ask two questions. One is on the language you're proposing on the previous slide. This is only going to apply to commercial, industrial, or maybe we should just more broadly call it non-residential.
And does that mean, like, if someone wanted to build for a bunch of condos, that still counts as residential? This is just commercial, industrial.
That's correct. Yes, you are correct in that we could just call it, I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint again. Let's see. We could just call, instead of just commercial and industrial, non-residential. And I'm trying to think, non-resident, but then it would apply to institutional, like schools or churches.
Yeah, but do we get a lot of those building requests? Or could we? I don't know.
Could. We're just building a middle school, and I know we worked with them on preserving the trees. They had a 77-acre site, so Belmont Middle School. But again, at the end of the day, they still cleared, they need athletic fields. So they need to put them where they need to put them. They need circulation for the school. We want the school facing the street. So, that was one thing we did not address in the tree ordinance, that, people were saying, that shock factor where you might have a vacant site that's wooded all the way to the right of way. People drive up and down this road and they're used to this wooded lot. Well, all of a sudden, all the trees up front are wiped out. But that's usually the flattest part of the property. That's where the building has to face the street. And part of that is the way our ordinance is written. All buildings have to have an orientation to the front of the street. We don't give credit for tree saves along the front hiding a use, right? No commercial use wants to be hidden behind trees. So, we could say non-residential use, but I just want to make it clear that would apply to any, so it would apply to all residential mixed use. We'd still want it in that mixed use category where it's residential and commercial. We would want that. And again, there's always a relief, however we word it. So we say commercial and industrial, and a church or school comes along. there's still a process for them. The same with a residential subdivision. It would just keep the same process that we have in place, where it would go to the ESB board for consideration and then come back. So it's like an extra 30 days of delay. The intent behind commercial and industrial is the city really wants our ordinances to help expedite non-residential development. So there's no delay, especially if there's an industrial commercial that's ready to go. They just would like to see things be processed more quickly and administratively for non-residential development. So,
okay.
But yeah, it's up to you. I mean, that would mean the same thing. The only thing I think it would affect would be institutional uses. And if we put it non-residential, and that's not a bad thing. You know, for example, we're doing our recreation center. We say non-residential, that would fall in that category as well.
Yeah, even if it's a nonprofit or a government association or, you know, something that would not clearly be in the commercial industrial category, yeah. I don't see why they should be any more preferred as far as, you know, their commitment to the overall city's tree ordinance. I mean, and
again, if we can get the more places we can get double trees saved, that's great.
Right, and it benefits all of us. I'm sorry, it benefits all of us as citizens. So, yeah, why not?
Okay, all right, that's a great recommendation.
And Shelley, in your response to my first question, you kind of addressed the second unasked question, which is, you know, does the role of the ESB still come into play when it comes to requests for relief? And you seem to have affirmed that. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything else stays the same. Again, we're only looking at to try to do some relief that you guys are agreeable to, where if we're going to write relief for a certain category, we want to make sure the board is comfortable with that. And again, if it's a residential subdivision, they're seeking relief, or anybody wants some other type of relief, it would still go to the ESB board.
Yeah, thus far, we've had 2 reviews. I'm not sure what the total population of permits has been in that time period, but is that out of dozens or hundreds of requests?
No, not at all. No, not at all. In fact, we've only had maybe 3 or 4 total new projects submitted that fell under the tree ordinance, and 2 of them asked for relief. And I can tell you, you'll probably see more of them. So we've had a lot of projects that were filed in residential subdivisions. We can work on them for a year before they start seeing daylight. So we have some big projects, say on 200 or 400 acres and such, that was filed before the adoption of the new tree ordinance, and we're just getting ready to bring them through the planning board and council. But most of the large properties out there these days that are eligible for development are almost 100% wooded. The industrial, the example I just showed you of the tree inventory, if you notice, that's not really 100% wooded, and they didn't really balk too much when we said, okay, you need to follow the tree ordinance and survey all the trees on the property. So what we find is if it's not 100% wooded, people really don't have that much heartburn over doing an inventory on what's there. It's when, you know, we're going to start hitting bigger properties that are 100% wooded that they're going to come back before you.
Okay, thank you for that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a small data sample, but it sounds like a sizable ratio. So
yeah. And again, we'll have more come up. So anytime you adopt, you update your regulations and you update to fix some issues. Sometimes you find that you overcorrect and you need to bring it back just a little bit. And so it usually takes a year or two of actually implementation to find out the areas that are working very well and we're successful, and other areas that aren't making quite as much sense. In theory, they're great, but when you try to apply it, it's difficult.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm hoping to get a recommendation for the board to support this amendment with what was suggested is use the term non-residential, so it's not just limited to commercial and industrial.
Anyone would like to float that motion to adopt what proposed changes Shelley is suggesting with the addition of the non-residential qualifier?
I'm not able to float being a non-voting member, I don't believe. But I just, I guess I just had another question, Shelley, further to what you were saying, with regards the screening, of trees. Mm-hmm. And I've sort of thought about it a few times that I wasn't sure whether it was something that we should have perhaps included, just because of that shock factor, because I know that was, why we started, with doing the 100%. And then I just wanted to make sure that we still, keep those concerns at heart and just wanted to just put it out there. I don't think it's related to this motion tonight, but I think it may be something we want to discuss a little further as to whether there's, some kind of screening trees, because if I think about Hilton Head, I think they're an Audubon city, and one of the things that's fantastic about them is whether it's retail stores, they have all these beautiful screening trees, and a lot of them are actually, natural trees, and somehow they've managed to make it work so that you see trees, and then the shops, etc., are behind that. So I'm not sure where it fits, but I just wanted to raise that. I'm, understand and I'm in support of the concept, and I understand the challenges associated with development, but I just wanted to put that in there as a thought, as far as just making sure we still keep mitigating, our original, sort of concern. But the 200%, I think, is great. I think that's a great proposal around how to, keep that balance for everybody, because we want everybody to feel like they have a home in Belmont. So, so I just wanted to throw that out there, but I don't believe I can motion because I'm non-voting.
So I read through. Shelley, you want to say something?
The other thing I was going to say is to address the comment is I do think that we need to go back and discuss the shock factor issue. I know someone suggested when we were doing the tree ordinance and it didn't get in there, and it doesn't necessarily need to get in there. Maybe there's a policy we could adopt, but part of the struggle is if your most buildable area is adjacent to the street and our ordinances are written where all of our buildings have to face the street, whether it's residential or commercial, then you could expect that area, if there are trees there, to be the first area that is cleared. And I think someone recommended putting up fencing with maybe more educational information on the fencing So people understand that although a lot of trees are being removed, this site is actually saving so many acres of healthy trees and maybe screening fencing around the development. So when the clearing's occurring, it's not as shocking when you drive by. One day you drive by and there's trees, the next day they're gone. But you've seen construction sites that have the fancy fencing around it, and they usually have advertisements or pictures of the development that's going on. Something like that could help address that sort of shock factor. And then I think we could further explore. I agree, Hilton Head is a unique animal. It's one of the few areas in around that makes a big effort to have all the trees lining the commercial area, so you really don't even see the commercial area except for a sign out there. But I'm not sure how that would fit for Belmont, but there are examples out there that we can look at.
Yeah, great, Shelley. I believe I was the one that suggested that. And I mean, it's a good way to show also how the environmental board is actually involved in, in development that's happening, and that we are consciously, taking action to be considerate of the trees. So, okay, so perhaps we can table that as just a discussion about how we, sure. It's almost like we promote the, what we're doing, to take care of, making sure this is good for everybody. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so I kind of wanted to put a comment in here and then complete it with a motion. But I guess to do it right would be something like, whereas I was not part of the decision making and how much land we are wanting or willing to sell for development or to give to development or, otherwise have for development. And whereas I wasn't part of constructing the tree protection landscaping, but reading section 11.1.4 of the LDC chapter, tree protection and landscaping, it seems like all of the bullets here are met by having just a portion of the land surveyed with more than 10% saved for tree save area. I'm not seeing anything in there that says we're looking for something pretty unique within that 100% survey. It says that we want to provide shade, we want to reduce stormwater runoff, and this all occurs with just having trees there. And so I will go ahead and motion to accept the changes.
And I will second that recommendation.
And just to reaffirm, and thank you for the motion in the second, the proposed changes Shelley has introduced would apply to non-residential?
That's correct.
Only?
Yes, non-residential only. So if it's a different category, mixed use, any component of residential, all residential, it would still use the existing process that's laid out where it comes to the ESB board for a discussion and a recommendation.
So Doug, are you okay with adding that qualifier to the motion?
Yes, I'm fine with that. The only reason why I smile is because if you look at the types of development, they have single family residential and then they have multifamily, but nowhere in there is residential mentioned. But I imagine that multifamily applies as well. Mm-hmm. Because
I assume the word family goes with residential. I would
okay. I'm looking at these different types. One says residential.
There is a good point there, that there is mixed use, and I'm not sure, Shelley, how the city classifies where you might have residential units on the second and third floor and commercial on the first floor of a mixed use building.
Yeah, we would call that mixed use, and we'd still keep it under. Those projects are really heavily scrutinized, so we would keep it into the category of not falling under this relief. It would have to go through the regular process.
Okay.
Okay.
So in light of that, Robert, I motion with the changes being applied to everything non-residential.
Okay, and I think we had a second already. I don't know. Is that Becky? Okay.
Yeah, that was me.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And the motion passes.
Thank you. I will stop sharing if I am sharing.
Shelley, thank you. I mean, I know you take a lot of questions from us as we jointly review these proposed changes together, and we just certainly as a board want to make sure we're doing the right thing for the city.
No, I appreciate it. And again, I hope we can bring back further discussion about the tree ordinance and addressing some of the other issues as they come about.
Thank you, Shelley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so moving on, I believe the next, I'm sorry, was there something else? Okay, moving on, there was another section of our agenda on updated bylaws, and I don't know if Peyton or you or Shelley were going to explain this further. Peyton?
I got it, yeah.
Okay.
So let me see here if I can get to the right slide. So this is kind of what we've been talking about, I guess, since the end of last fall-ish when we were kind of prepping for council. And I attached the changed bylaws to your agenda packets, but kind of this is proposing to change the total number of members of the board to 8. So we would keep the existing 2 student members and we would have 6 regular members instead of the current 5. We'd have 5 residents of the city and then we'd be adding that 1 ETJ member. And that was reflected in your packet as well. Some other little changes we added were to change the chair and vice chair elections to align with where your terms kind of fall within the calendar year. Right now, the elections are in March, but it kind of made sense to us to change that to June since your terms are June to May. And that just kind of seemed like a good move. And then the other one was since we now have a total of 8 members, we upped the quorum from 3 voting members to be present to 5 voting members to be present. So those are the 3 changes that we've made to the bylaws, and we're seeking approval to amend those.
We went from 3 to 5, is that right, Peyton?
We did, just because the board's grown in numbers of members, and now that we have 8 total members, we upped it from 3 to 5.
Okay. And can you define ETJ for me? I
Sure.
knew what it was before, but it's gone now.
Yeah, that's the extraterritorial jurisdiction. Normally it's about just a little bit of a buffer around the city limits. And our thought there was to just slide Sharon into that position so she could become a voting member.
And I'll just add on that. It's important. It's good to have a representative of the ETJ. And the reason why is, for example, the tree ordinance applies to all parcels subject to our zoning regulations, and that includes properties in the city's ETJ. So it makes sense that we have representation on the ESB board, just like the Board of Adjustment and the Planning Board, where you have someone that lives in the ETJ that helps vote and participates in regulations that affect them.
All right, I'm going to apologize for this question before I put it out there. But because I know we spoke about it. I just forgot what we came up with. I remember we were concerned with, as we progress as a board, will there ever be a time where we require an ETJ member but are unable to find one? And what did we come up with at the end of that?
Are you talking about when we met with council?
Yeah, I remember the question was brought up. It was brought up that what if we can't find one? Should we make this requirement that every board needs one ETJ?
I would have to go back to double check, but I'm pretty sure they said as long as we could advertise for it and fill it, it would be okay. I think the key into filling that position is to actually advertise to ETJ residents, because I think sometimes it's advertised more as just within the city limits residents. So I think if we just kind of did our due diligence on our side to advertise to ETJ people, then it would be okay.
Would it be possible at all to just put parentheses next to that ETJ resident as optional if able to fill the seat? I just wouldn't want to slow anything down if, and I know we do our best advertising and filling the seat, and we probably would. I'm just wondering if we would be able to make that as, yeah, we accept for it, but it wouldn't stop anything if we didn't have an ETJ member. Or is that not allowed?
Well, no, that's something you can do, but we have that same issue with the Board of Adjustment and Planning Board, and it's very rare that we are unable to actually get a ETJ resident where we can't fill a vacancy. So it hasn't really been a problem. I think it was turned out as a what if issue. In fact, typically we interview 2 to 3 people from the ETJ area whenever there's a vacancy. And that's without even a direct mail out. I'm pretty confident that if for some reason, in fact, we have an ETJ resident participating in our ESB board right now, that I think that we wouldn't have that problem. And based on our process, we have to advertise for any open position, whether it's a regular seat or ETJ seat. We have to open it up for anyone to apply. The council needs to interview them. And if for some reason we advertise and say, Sharon, you get tired of serving, we could always do a direct mail out to residents in the ETJ. It's not that big of an area. But again, you could put optional, but it's never held up the operation of a board that I've known.
Okay. And I think in our past, since I've been on the board in the past year or so, I think about a year or so, I don't think we've ever had issues meeting, or maybe we've had one issue in the past year, which I think is acceptable, with meeting our quorum or having 5 members present every time. So I think that's fine. 5, not 4.
I think it's been 4 previously.
Well, I think Payne was saying that quorum before was 3, and so now we're upping it to 5.
In the existing bylaws, it is 3. That is the current quorum. We just recommended 5, but if the board wants to go elsewhere, we can amend if needed.
That is a sizable jump, going from 3 to 5. but it may just require us to, Peyton, I'm sorry, this may be some of your burden, but to just verify attendance well in advance just to make sure, members can be there or reschedule accordingly.
I can do that with other boards, so I'm okay if to just do a little RSVP if the board is willing to just kind of confirm and lock in, or at least just tell me one way or the other so we'll know in advance.
Yeah, I mean, Peyton and Shelly, if that number seems fine to you, 5 out of 8, I think I'm fine with it. I think it's a good idea to always have it like an RSVP like a week before, just to know what everyone's getting into. And you know what? We don't even have to assign that to you, Peyton. We could just pick someone here to say, this is your job, or someone can volunteer for it. Make sure that we have at least 5.
Well, and I can also include that when I send out the agenda and the packets. I can just kind of say, hey, please RSVP. That's what I've done with some of the other boards. So if y'all are on the lookout for those, you can kind of just reply back to that saying, yes, I'll be there, or no, I'm not, if that works for you guys.
Okay. And
quick question
go ahead,
quick question, Peyton. So my guess would be that you would implement the 5-person quorum when you get a full board. So when that ETJ position is filled.
I think that would be a good plan, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So, and this is with, if this doesn't work out like we see over the next few months, I mean, I guess we have the power to change it. But I'll motion to accept this request.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Well done, Becky.
Any further discussion?
No, I'm good with everything as is.
All right. If you're in support of this motion to adopt these 3 changes to the bylaws as documented, please say aye.
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 Yeah. Becky, I think it's just you and I now. Danielle.
I had to step away.
Which is ironic.
Yeah.
Oh, Danielle, you're on mute.
I think she sent in the chat. She said she didn't have any objections, but she had to excuse herself to get the baby down.
Oh, okay. No worries. All right. Well, we have elected to pass this request for all 3 points as documented. I think you're right, Doug. We're just going to have to watch the quorum requirement just to make sure that we meet that each time. I don't think it's a problem, but I do agree. I think adding an additional member to this board, reflects the growth of the city overall and gives us additional voices and perhaps some diversity in those voices as it relates to the policies that we're focused on. And that's always a good thing.
Definitely. And I am also quite the supporter of having 2 student members as well. Getting everyone involved, especially, the earlier age, the better.
And I'm assuming, I don't know if the bylaws actually say this specifically, but we're talking about high school students specifically, right? We're not, or college. Is it college or high school or?
It's, the bylaws say who are preferably enrolled at South Point High School or Belmont Abbey College. That's what it says specifically.
Okay.
Not to make this more complicated, but are there Belmont residents who could be going to Stuart Kramer?
Thanks, Becky.
I'm in Eagle Park, and I was under the impression that some of our kids went to the Stuart Kramer. But
I believe they do.
Yeah, it serves Stuart Kramer. There's a portion of the city that's serviced by Stuart Kramer. So you could put just more generic, like a high school student and a college student. Then if you end up with 2 high school students, great. If you end up with 1 and 1 or 2 college, whatever is available, it would be supported.
Okay, well, thank you, Peyton and Shelley, both for presenting this. I think the last item on our agenda is the report from subcommittees, but I don't know if there's any new updates or anything to report. I know Jennifer and I have not had a chance to connect on energy, and so there's certainly not anything that can be reported there.
Well, I could give a quick update for Arbor Day planning.
Okay, excellent.
So we are planning a tree giveaway on March 20th. So not this weekend, but next. The saplings have been ordered. We ordered 100 red buds that are between 18 and 24 inches. And we ordered some eco-friendly materials to essentially like pot them temporarily so that we can have them in dirt when we give them away. But we're going to need some hands, I think, to help with the potting of the saplings, because they'll come just bare root. And we'll probably, we don't have tracking information yet, but Cassie's going to send that to us as soon as she has it. So as soon as we have tracking information and can, kind of verify like approximately when we expect these trees to come in. I'm hoping by the end of this week so we could use the weekend, but it looks like it might be, I reread Cassie's email today and saw that it might be mid of next week. So if you guys have any like availability on your calendars for Thursday evening or Friday evening next week, maybe just put a little earmark on that, because we might need to do like a socially distanced outdoor gathering to plant some trees. And there's 100 to plant, so obviously the more hands, the faster it'll go. The other events for we're planning for actual Earth Day on April 22nd are also, we're still working on those as well, but this is probably the most urgent one. So I just want to make sure you guys were aware. We might be reaching out to you to ask for volunteers either this weekend or later next week.
What was that little voice?
That was Ellie. She's sitting right next to me.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, we made some good strides. Very excited about getting the trees and the pots in, and then planting them, and then giving them out. And then I guess if you're interested in getting a tree, the advertising will be out there, and you can put your name on the list.
Outstanding. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Doug.
So I know this brings us towards the end, but I was just curious. I remember Peyton showed us this nice calendar a couple times on, what our goals are and objectives are monthly. And I was wondering, how do we feel about bringing that up, like basically every board meeting, just to kind of check the status, the pulse on what projects we have going, and if we need to put any more effort towards any of those goals or activities. Does that make sense or no?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I can kind of bring that up right now if you want me to.
Yeah, please. Just to see like what we said in the past that we were working on.
So this is kind of where we are right now. Can everyone see that okay?
Sure can.
Okay. So I know that Danielle and Sharon helped me with the Bee City USA renewal application. So that's been turned in, and they have confirmed that they've received it. So that was something that we did and checked off our list. So waiting to hear back from them. Some other news. We did receive our Tree City USA for 2020. So I think it's our 13th year in a row or something like that. They sent us a sticker to put on our sign. And they also, we got the Growth Award this year. So this is the first time in 10 years that we got the Growth Award for Tree City USA. So that's something, some little updates I have for y'all since our last meeting.
I think this is, I think this is great. Would we be opposed to not having this at in the agenda every month to just say, bring up the calendar? Just to get status and make sure that we're moving along as we planned. And then if we want to, add to one of the months.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Certainly we leave a category for miscellaneous items too under new business, but this is something we can revisit monthly. And speaking of that, Peyton, are we on track for our blog postings?
Ooh, I meant to bring that up, so thanks for reminding me about that. I think we have it on the calendar for Monday, if I'm remembering. I'll have to pull up the Google Doc to see whose turn it was. I can't remember who had March, but we're supposed to have it ready and posted.
It's Danielle and myself.
Okay.
It's Danielle. Yeah. And I just I have something. I just wanted to touch base with Danielle because I know it was for promotion of Arbor Day and then also for I think it was a bee, pollinator, and so I just wanted to coordinate as far as whether I guess for the Arbor Day we probably want that one to go first. Correct.
And I think Cassidy's been on that, doing the tree giveaway post and everything. So I don't think we need to worry about that. She's taking care of that. But I think doing any kind of pollinator education would be a good idea for March.
Perfect. Okay, that's what I thought Cassidy was doing it, and I just didn't want to duplicate there. So I have something draft and I can run that past Danielle, see if she had anything she wanted to do specifically, and get that to you. So what time frame? Because I think there was one sort of towards the beginning of the month and then one towards the end of the month. What time frame would you like that post for?
I think last month we only did one, and I think it was in the middle. So I think we're kind of just, since this is so fresh and new, just seeing what works best for everyone. So if you want to do it this week, next week, you can. But if you want to skip that and then just get it to me so we can post it at the end of the month too, that's fine too. I mean, we're not going unnoticed on social media just because of the tree giveaway and things. So maybe if you do want to wait till the end, once that kind of goes along, and then we'll pick back up with pollinators at the end of the month. But it's ultimately up to you.
Yeah, that's true, because we got the tree giveaway on the 19th, so we really want to keep that top of mind, and then I can maybe aim for the 26th or thereabouts. Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Sounds fantastic. Do we need to do anything on the recycling education campaign or update or anything?
I'll need to touch base with Bill. I think I was at the council meeting last week, and they did approve the Waste Pro in-house yard waste and leaf collection and things like that. So I think that's kind of in the works. But I can touch base with him. We might want to just push that to April, just so we can kind of get a better idea of what's needed. I know we're going with Waste Pro, so I don't know kind of where we need to, what our strategy is, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of education we want to put out there.
And what they offer as well, and if they offer anything additional in this new contract or things like that. So I think I have some work to do on that.
Okay.
Right.
Who was on the recycling education subcommittee? Hopefully it's not me.
I don't. Pretty sure that I'm on that one.
Okay. Peyton, you want to put that for next agenda as well, to just talk about like where we are with our new recycling company and what we have and how we can be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's exciting.
Yes, definitely.
Peyton, I wonder if we might want to just remind all the board members of these subcommittees. Who agreed to what? Because
I can do that. I'm not 100% sure if we have established a recycling subcommittee. Have we? I know we have energy. We
Arbor
have
Day.
the Arbor Day, Bay City we did, but I don't know if we ever actually signed up. I would need to look, unless y'all remember.
I don't recall.
Is this on our site somewhere in the subcommittees, or this is just kind of?
It wouldn't be on our website, no.
Okay. All right. Yeah, this would be good to have somewhere just to, because I know, like you said, energy, Arbor Day, recycling. I'm hopefully I didn't miss any of my subcommittee meetings.
Well, yeah, I know recycling subcommittee hasn't met at all, which is kind of why I'm thinking it doesn't exist. But if anyone's interested and you want to do anything, feel free to shoot me an email and we can kind of go ahead and get a loose ball rolling on that.
I'll just go ahead and throw my name in the hat.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and I'll do that as well. And
Okay.
would we be able to, at the bottom of this document, just put the subcommittees and who's involved in those?
Yeah. And we can
just to keep it somewhere.
Yeah, I can do that, and we can just kind of touch base on that too every meeting. Just
Yep. No, good idea.
Keep us a subcommittee update / calendar update just to see where we are.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, I'm good.
All right. So is there any further new business anyone would like to bring up? Okay, hearing none, I think we'll look to bring this particular March meeting to a close. And unless, Peyton, there's anything else that you can suggest?
I don't have anything. Nothing else for me.
Okay. All right, good discussion. Thanks, everyone. I hope you all have a good evening and look forward to our discussions a month from now.
All right, thank you.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Seeing you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.